All right, back by popular demand. We have two topics that we want to cover today. We're going to start with the larger spend stuff and then get down into the smaller spend accounts. We got a lot of questions and just reactions on the LinkedIn article when we were talking about small spend accounts. So I want to go through some more questions on that. But we're going to start on the big stuff today. So, the big topics among high spending advertisers, if you're in this algorithm, you're seeing it all over your Twitter. This is bot traffic and display network. And
Audience
what is
network.
happening there?
Yeah, so we started noticing a lot of iOS traffic getting driven on a few of our larger accounts, end of October, early November. As we dug in, we noticed, oh, there's a lot of audience network placement that's happening. And as we dug in even further, we started noticing that starting in August, Meta has been delivering more and more ads to audience network and driving up an insane amount of clicks from audience network with click-through rates that are also insane, like 20% click-through rates, 18% click-through rates. In some cases, traffic from audience network had actually been rivaling Instagram, or more traffic than Instagram coming from audience network. We looked at it on one brand, noticed, this traffic was actually diminishing the quality of its whole ecosystem. Poor traffic coming in, poor quality leads that are getting in the email list, poor quality, conversions, just low value traffic. And the interesting part is a lot of advertisers like might not have seen this because ratio wise, the impressions or the delivery is still pretty consistent. But when you drill into the actual link clicks, that's where you see it. You see a massive amount of link clicks. I think there's a lot of bot traffic. I think that there's a bug. Meta's not admitting that there was a bug, but we've kind of corroborated the charts of a number of different brands that started experiencing this. And then amongst other things, this last 30 days for Meta has been one of the worst, I would say, in my career of doing ads, period.
Wow.
It's just performance wise, updates, constant bugs. It's the holiday season. We're going into like duplicate ads and move campaigns around and get a structure that's really locked in. And on a number of accounts, it's like you're running great, it's humming, things are looking good in October, and then all of a sudden, end of October, everything breaks, and then it keeps breaking, and you have no idea what's working. So you're trying and testing and trying to find a structure, but the fact is there's not a structure that's going to work because they're still developing stuff on the back end. They're still pushing code live, so there's no like stability. And so I've been kind of diagnosing all these different things on different accounts with different media buyers and founders and you know growth directors. Like everyone's trying to corroborate like what's working for them and what's not working and what changed and all this stuff. But you have this layer of people that are trying to figure out what happened and how to make things work. But then you have this other layer that's the ad account and the platform that's also changing. It's like shifting sand. It's like you can't build a new account, you can't build a new structure when the auction beneath it is actually shifting. So here we are, 7 days exactly, but for the Cyber 5. And I feel like today is actually the first day that it feels stable. There's not as many bugs. And granted, what happened today, it was the last wave of their code freezes. Why we're waiting until November 20th, I don't know, but it's a little bit obviously frustrating as, November forecasts. Yeah, it is pretty rough for a lot of brands out there. And it's clear if you look around Twitter, you look around LinkedIn that Meta performance is not optimal in a time of year where it should be.
But now the code freeze happened today, right? So we should see a little bit more stability going forwards.
Apparently, yeah, apparently according to one of my reps. So that should be good, but still, even with that, we've had to rebuild two ad accounts in the last week, basically. Ad accounts that have very thick campaign stacks with a lot of nuance to them, going after different cohorts and different products. Now what's working is literally consolidate all of your best ads into one ad set, scale it up as fast as you can, and sunset the things that aren't working.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's really frustrating, especially this time of year. You're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on these campaigns.
Hmm.
and their entire team is putting a lot of work into producing this creative for you. So for this to just
Yeah.
turn off at this time of year, it's the worst possible timing.
We've seen instances where an ad set that maybe has, a budget of, 30K for the day, one ad in that ad set gets $28,000 and the rest of the ad get the rest like 2,000. And
Yeah,
that's not just like one instance over one day. That's like multiple days, multiple instances. And that performance is not reflective, It's not like that ad is crushing it over these other ads. So there's a lot of delivery issues, a lot of spend issues, a lot of bugs, issues where, flex format, is displaying with weird cropping issues, and you have no control over how to display it other than just rebuild all of your ads not in flex format, but that kind of defeats the point of using flex format.
sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the really frustrating part this has been such an issue for Meta since I think since 2020 is delivery and budget allocation. You'll stack creatives in the consolidated ad format. You're now using flex format. So you might have three different ads inside of one ad set that are running at any given time. And in each one of those ads, there's 5 to 10 creatives. But
Hmm.
the first of all, the breakdown by creative delivery is not actually working. So you don't have any visibility to the creative that's working in the flex format. I noticed that in one account, in the other account, I didn't have visibility. So I don't know, but it's also like you said, the spend is so disproportionately swayed towards one of the creatives, regardless of how it's performing. So
Exactly.
how does a new advert or how does anybody navigate this? And this is an actual question. How do you navigate the spend discrepancies when Meta's pushing a consolidated format and you as the advertiser are supposed to use flex format, stack a bunch of creatives, and kind of fly blind?
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard, right? Because especially if you had a certain structure that was working all year long, and then suddenly in November, you have to reinvent the wheel and figure out what the new optimal structure is for your whole account. It's a little too late at that point, in my opinion.
Yeah,
However, there's other issues that we've been diagnosing, and it's got me thinking of this like diagnosis framework that I'm developing of really in your mind, laying a grid over the business, and then putting certain categories in certain boxes. So you have CRO and web in one category, you have Meta in one, you have Google in one, you have offer in one category. And then you look at each of those boxes, and then within those grids, you have another set of grids, right? So maybe your Meta grid, you go in and you look at, okay, traffic quality, demo distribution, campaign settings, meta, and you have all of these different areas that you diagnose within that grid. And then you can drill it down even further. Okay, delivery, that grid, iOS versus, and then at a certain point, these dots start connecting to the other ones. Like, oh, a massive influx in Android traffic coming from Meta. Okay, let's correlate that with CRO. What are we seeing over there? Oh, okay, web is seeing, or CRM is seeing, poor lead quality. Their lead flow has started to drop off. The conversion on the leads is bad. Okay, possibly connected to Android traffic over here. And you start to kind of unpack, but the thing is like it can be really easy to, a lot of times you'll enter seasons like this where it feels like a literal storm. You're on a boat and the waves are crashing. There's all these variables going on. If you've ever sailed a boat, like it's great when the weather's, not horrible, but if you get into some weather and you're on a big boat, there's so many variables you got to manage in regards to like, you know, pulling sails up and down and which direction the rudder's going and who's doing what and making sure no one's getting in. There's just like it's like chaos. So really what our job is to bring order to chaos, and if the ad account or if the brand, if it seems chaotic because the numbers aren't making sense in the dashboard, the revenue's not coming in. What is it? Are we missing our, is it the offer? Like really looking at it from a higher level and putting a grid on the situation and and looking at the variables that you can control within that grid, and then drilling it down as detailed as you can while also zooming out as far as you can until you can start to thread together some sort of story or some sort of theory that makes sense as to why performance is down. However, that's just looking at the elements that you can directly control. then you throw another layer of it of the elements you can control, meta delivery issues, bugs, the economy, people, being it's a little softer this year in ecom. And then, there's another thing I've been thinking about of like, Amazon, right? Walmart, the big spenders on Meta. Like people think the Meta like caters to D2C because it's the most effective for D2C. However, like some of their biggest advertisers aren't, it's not, it's not these like independent D2C brands that maybe spend, you know, tens of millions a month. It's these billion-dollar spenders that are ultimately the market makers and probably the companies that Meta's going to have a little, a little more influence from. So I don't know. There's that element of like, I mean, Amazon's coming hard after everybody. They have been forever. Who's to say they're not coming after D2C next? And, on some levels, like maybe we're being impacted by, much more macro level things.
Yeah, yeah, that's lots to digest there. But that last point I think is really interesting. I mean, Meta is not so small, but it's kind of like a microcosm of what's happening in the economy as well. There are so many different variables that are going to affect the way that the entire system operates. And you, as the small advertiser, even if your budget's over $100,000 a month, which we would still categorize as a small budget, you're you are subject to all of these changes, and there's really nothing that you can do. You kind of just have to play the system. The best thing that you could do is try to unravel the Meta black box and speak to people that actually understand how the system works.
Yeah, exactly. Unravel it as much as you can and control what you can,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it's almost like you're using the scientific method to figure out what's going on, which is cool that you can do that, but it's really frustrating at the same time because you're just when all you're doing is diagnosing problem, it's tough to have the foresight on, what ad should he launch next? What's this offer? Like when you're always just putting out fires, it's difficult to
Yeah, and
scale
you
an
know
account.
what? Like what you said about that is super interesting because we do as advertisers, performance marketers. You're a scientist. You're a data scientist. You apply the scientific method, right? Well, the scientific method makes sense when the laws of physics and the laws of nature are consistent, right? So you can apply a set of rules and principles, a method to testing, learning, growing, that you're going to get outcomes and you're going to get learnings that are actually going to be relevant and consistent. Okay, when you're trying to apply a scientific method to a system that's fundamentally always changing, it'd be like the rules of physics suddenly changing where like up doesn't mean up anymore. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, up actually means down and left means right. So, but that might change on, December 31st. So make sure that it's like you can't apply a scientific method to that. Like, and that's
A
where
hundred percent.
there is a matter of like art and science in performance marketing because at the end of the day it's like as scientific as we want to get, like we're still subject to the people that are writing the fundamental code in on probably one of three major platforms, right? Like data platforms. So
Yeah.
and that can change at any minute. So I don't think it is. I mean, there's an element of science, like, marketing gurus try to apply and bring to it, but like there's also an element of art where at a certain level, you look at an account and you say, okay, do I know this offer's good? Like, has it connected before? Is the creative good? Has it worked before? Okay, I know the audience. Regardless of what's going on over here, can I, at the very least, buy impressions or buy reach to the people that I know, convert, and can I get that at a low enough price that's going to net out to us being profitable? Like you almost have to zoom out sometimes and just look at the pure fundamentals of marketing, you know. But we try to be scientists, because we love control, and part of why performance marketing is great is you can create a level of perceived control for a brand to be able to scale or not scale or have predictability and
Yeah, well, it's
yeah,
certainly more
exist.
predictable using paid than relying on non-paid channels. Like it
For sure.
ultimately, if you're going to scale and you need a consistent revenue stream coming in daily, and you don't have massive monthly fluctuations, like you need to be running paid one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's why a lot of people switch to paid or want to run paid.
I think everybody wants to run paid, and then everyone who tries on their own realizes how difficult it is or how frustrating and inconsistent the system is, and then they either
Yeah.
think, "Oh, paid ads don't work," which is obviously not true when Meta processes I don't know how many billions of dollars per quarter. Like it works, it's just not working for you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not working now, or it worked earlier. Some I've come across
Right, right.
recently is like someone had a funnel, that was crushing it back in May, and the upsell was particularly was crushing it. And it wasn't even books running it in October, November, same creative, same funnel, same targeting, same account, all of the a lot of the variables that we could control are very similar or the same, but people aren't going to the upsell. And it's like, all right, well, why? And yeah, we can test, we can try to figure that out, but at a certain point, it's like, when economists say all things remain consistent before they're discussing certain outcomes or measurements or whatever, it's like it's the same with I think the ad auction. It's like, yeah, if all things stay consistent, then this outcome is probable. However,
Mhm.
more so than most systems, all things do not remain consistent. They actually change much more than a lot of systems. So
Yeah.
to expect that the same offer and the same ads are going to convert perpetually is a fallacy.
Is something I've been thinking about lately since we've been having these conversations is just how unregulated the inner workings of Meta actually are.
Yeah.
They can release a new feature. They can make something available for some accounts and not for others. They can push people to only use Meta checkout. Like they can really do whatever they want, and the entire global economy is subject to their tests. Like we really are the test dummies on their
Yeah.
data, and we're putting our money into the system and use it. It's it's kind of mind-boggling to think that they have that amount of control,
Yeah.
and there's the perception that it's regulated or that there's free speech or whatever that you can kind of use the platform to your own will, but you're really subject to whatever tests they decide to run that day.
Yep. Well, that's actually getting a lot of attention right now too. Is like, wait, why is Meta testing their platform on my budget? Like,
Sure,
and
it's
the
a fair
fact is that's
question.
what they're doing. Yeah, and that's exactly what they're doing.
I see so many like young gun entrepreneurs, especially in the e-com space, bragging about scaling without ads. And I think that's becoming a really popular thing if you're drop shipping. It's like I
Hmm.
made $1 million and I didn't run a single ad. It's like you're bragging about it in a way.
Yeah,
Um, at what point does that change? And now you're having to pay for organic reach. Because I know Gary Vee talks about this all the time of like the privilege we have to reach people for free right now is gonna go
yeah.
away.
I don't know though. That's an interesting thought because it probably will go away at a certain point.
Mm.
There's a really interesting book I just read. It's called Techno Feudalism, and it's the concept of like being in a feudalistic society like we used to be, where like there was landowners and then there was the people who worked the land and they had to pay for access to work the land. The landowners of our day are the tech companies, the people that own the silicone. They're the landowners, and in one way or another we're paying to exist on it, whether we're paying our internet provider, the ISPs, whether we're paying with our data, whether we're paying a subscription. Like, it's costing us something to participate in the digital economy. And they are the ones they own the roads, they own the land, they own the ecosystem, and there's nothing we can do to change that, like,
Wow.
singularly. So
That's a grim thought. But you're right.
that's where it's going, right? It's like, especially with AI, now it's a matter of, okay, who's got the energy supply to power the machine,
Sure.
and who's got the silicone, who's got the energy, and it's like, yeah, the more the digital world evolves, the more it's going to become consolidated and run by a few conglomerates, and all of us peasants will be out here trying to make a couple dollars by spending a couple dollars in their closed ecosystem of a game.
Right. Yeah.
Happy November, everybody.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Well, that's a good place to end it. Next Thursday is going to be the kickoff for Black Friday. Good luck, everyone, and yeah, we'll probably touch base after Black Friday.
Catch you on the next one.